pop the sound in. Alright. Hey, look at that. It popped right up without me having to refresh. Do a quick sound check here. And it's froze. Okay. It's finally caught up. It was froze there for a minute. Okay, I think we're all right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the T350 Show. It's Tuesday afternoon. Jim, James, Russ. Oh, you didn't freeze? Okay, it only froze up for me here then. Okay, that's good. We'll give a minute or two for everybody to join in. How's everybody doing? As summer starts to wind down, the nights are getting cool here, getting down into the 50s here at night. I gotta click through some stuff here. Okay, I'm all set now. All right, so again, welcome everybody, and so while we wait for a few more minutes for see who's going to join us, I got tape stuck to me or something here. So hunting season's coming, and if you're like me, I'm a bow hunter. I'll be putting these out here starting probably this week, getting my corn feeders filled up, getting my hunting stations ready to go. I run trail cameras out at my stations, out at my spots. I kind of like to know what kind of deer I'm dealing with. Yeah, steelhead fishing and hunting. That's right. So I run trail cameras out at my spots, and I've become quite the Spypoint guy. I like my Spypoints. They're pretty cost effective. They're pretty decent quality. This was my first Spypoint. Got a couple years ago. The Link Micro. It's a good camera. It has some flaws, as some of the you know, even all cellular trail cameras did and do. The biggest one was that when your card, when it needed a software update, when it needed updated, you had to go out and get the camera or the card out, put the information on the card, or take a card with you with the information on there and manually update it. The other thing that this camera does all the time on me, and you know, it happens where I run a 12-volt battery on this particular unit. I haven't bought another 12-volt battery for this unit yet, but I use the external 12-volt battery because with these type of cameras, you know, these batteries go dead pretty quickly, right? Within a week or so, these batteries will be dead if you're transmitting any amount of pictures. Okay, so what these cameras do, they take a picture, and then within a minute or so, they send it right to your phone. You have the app for the Spypoint on your phone, and the information, the camera, the picture gets sent right to your phone. So you can be sitting in your recliner at 10 o'clock at night watching TV, and your phone bings, and boom, you get a picture of deer out at your feeder. Okay, kind of cool, kind of addicting. But what happens is these batteries go dead, and if you're, you know, not in a position where, okay, the app's telling you, hey, you're down to 30%, it's time to get out there and change your batteries, well, maybe you can't. Maybe life prevents you from doing some things, and you know, your batteries go completely dead and the camera shuts down. Okay, what that does to this model is it unformats the SD card, the micro SD card. It comes unformatted, and then it won't transmit pictures anymore. Even when you put new batteries back in it, you have to change out the card and take it back home and reformat it. and put a new card in. So I always keep a couple extra cards so I can put a new card in and take the other one home and reformat it. So this is the new Spypoint Flex. We were at the POMA show this year, and we were bidding on some advertising space in a national magazine, and the auction runners were some of the bigwigs from some of the companies, and one of the guys was there from Spypoint. Trent Marsh was there from Spypoint, and you know, he was our auction runner. And these guys were getting very competitive with trying to make sure that the people that they were running for were going to win the auction, so they were throwing in extras. And Trent threw in a new Spypoint Flex camera for us as part, and we ended up winning the auction. So we got the Spypoint Flex camera sent to us, and excited to give it a try out. And I've tried it out here in the shop. Super easy to set up. You know, I put the batteries in it, I put the SD card in it, turned it on, hit format. This thing formats the cards for you. You don't have to take the card out anymore to format it. So if it comes unformatted on you, you just turn it on, push the button, shut it off, turn it back on, and as soon as it turns on, you hit the format button, hold it down for 5 seconds, and it formats the card for you. No more taking the card in and out, right? So real nice there. The other super cool feature that I've been asking for these cameras to do for years and wondering why somebody couldn't do it, because they're cellular, right? Everything comes over the cellular network. It's 4G, 5G. Why don't these things update automatically right over the network? Spypoint's done it. You need a software update. It comes up on your phone, says update your camera. Hit update, and at the next sync, when the camera syncs, at certain times of the day, it syncs up, it updates the software automatically. So as soon as I turned this one on, it needed an update, and I did it. I hit OK. I set the time when I wanted it to sync, which was, you know, a couple minutes ahead of where I was, so that it would do it right away. Within a couple minutes, it said update complete. The little red warning went out on my phone that said I needed to do an update, and it immediately took a picture and sent it to my phone. So it updates and takes a picture and sends it to your phone to tell you that it's working. And great pictures. I'm really happy. The picture quality is there's better megapixels in this, more megapixels, so you get better image quality than you do with this. Larger, but really only about about 4 ounces heavier, right? A quarter of a pound heavier. It is motion based. These are all motion based cameras, and they're infrared, so they take pictures at night. Okay, so you can you get, you know, it's black and white pictures at night, color pictures during the day. But yes, they are motion activated. Something walks in front of the camera, and it has, you know, like a 0.9 second shutter speed, reaction speed. It takes a picture that fast. And then you can set the time so you're not getting 100 pictures of the same deer. You can say, okay, take a picture every 5 minutes. So you get a picture every 5 minutes. And, you know, there's drawbacks to that. Deer wander in and out. You might miss some, you might not, but eventually you're going to get pictures of all the deer in the area. It's just the way it works out. So I have found that going to a 5 or 10 minute delay on that, one, keeps you from getting a million pictures of the same deer or the same buck or same doe and fawn at the feeding station as they hang out there for half an hour, and every time they lift a leg it takes another picture. And it helps save on battery life, right? Because the more pictures it takes, the more it sends, the more battery it uses. So I'm really excited to get this out in the woods and give it a try. But, you know, hey, it was, this one I probably spent an hour messing with it trying to get it to work when I first bought it. And this one, within 5 minutes I had a picture. I had my first picture off of it. So real excited to get that out in the woods and give it a try. Spypoint cameras. Okay, so yeah, you can also, right, James, you can also set it to store the pictures. So it takes, if it takes 30, 40 pictures, it's not transmitting every one every time. It stores them, and then at certain times of the day it will send you all the pictures that it took. You know, if it's every 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, 12 hours, like James said, you know, it'll send all those pictures all at once to your phone. So you're not getting pictures in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. You know, maybe they all come in at 6 o'clock in the morning after you've gotten up and you're having your morning coffee or whatever. So, yeah, Spypoint cameras. If you're into cellular trail cameras, I definitely recommend them. I like them. And wouldn't mind having one or two more. Hint, hint, for my wife, because I know she's watching. Christmas is coming. So yeah, today is the 23rd. Tomorrow's the 24th, and the new frame receiver rule is set to take effect tomorrow. Now, I anticipate that there will be lawsuits filed immediately. In fact, I absolutely know. Yeah, honey, seriously. In fact, I know for sure there will be lawsuits filed. Like I said last week, our friends at Gun Owners of America and the Firearms Policy Coalition have already written the lawsuits. They're just waiting for them to become effective so they can file the lawsuits. Now, will those result in injunctions stopping the frame receiver rule from taking effect? I don't know. That is up to the judges that hear the lawsuits, whether they file injunctions against them. But we're going to talk a few minutes about what this rule means. Basically, over the last decade or so, there have been a few instances where people were arrested for possessing a lower when they were a felon or in some other way disabled from owning a firearm. And they were able to, I guess, not be prosecuted, have charges dropped. However, it was worked that there was no action taken because they said, according to the definition of a firearm, this does not meet the definition of a firearm. Okay, so they chose not to. From what I understand, they chose not to prosecute those because if they lost, then it opened up a Pandora's box of just potential problems for them. So, and instead of changing the definition of a gun, which has been the definition of a gun for decades and decades and decades, they chose to not prosecute those. So what they've done is updated the definition of a frame and receiver to address the technical, I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up, address the technological advancements and judicial developments since the regulatory definitions were originally set forth in 1968 and 1971. So what they've done is updated the definition of a gun to encapsulate what they call split receivers, right? This being the split receiver. It's in two pieces. It comes apart. Okay, most guns don't operate like this. They're not split. So the part of the gun that holds all of the action also holds the barrel, and so they updated the classification of a gun to include these split receivers. The definition of a frame receiver includes partially complete, disassembled, or non-functional frame or receiver that has reached a stage in manufacturing where it may quickly and easily be made to function as a frame or receiver. This action expressly excludes a block of metal, liquid polymers, and other raw materials, or a frame or receiver that has been destroyed. So, the 0% receiver that people talk about, the block of, well, this block of aluminum could be a receiver, so now you got to serialize this. They're excluding that. That is not what they call readily being able to be made into a gun part. Okay, what they're talking about in that is what we call in this world the 80% receiver. Right? This is a receiver that has been finished to a point where it does not accept trigger components and any firing mechanisms. Okay, so there's no, you can see, right? There's no pocket in there, and there's no holes in the side for the trigger pins and the safeties. right? So this thing is essentially 80% complete, but it's not complete enough to be considered a firearm. Now, historically, these are unserialized and unmarked, right? There's nothing on there, okay? And you take these with a jig and an end mill and some time, and you do the work on them in your garage at home, and you turn this into a receiver that you can then build your own AR with. Okay? Now, the law says you don't have to serialize. The law currently, as of today, says these don't have to be serialized. That's all going to change tomorrow, where these will have to be serialized, and you will have to go through a background check to buy this, because they consider this readily be able to be made into a gun. So you will have to go through a background check to buy the 80% lower, or a kit that contains an 80% lower. Now, I've seen a bunch of things. We've all seen it where, you know, all these guns can be made in a half an hour. You can make a full weapon. Well, I don't know anybody that can take this, do all this work to it, and build a full gun in half an hour. I don't know anybody that can do it. I certainly can't do it. Okay, there's a good half an hour to an hour's worth of work right here. Okay, doing this by hand, and then you got to drill the holes in the side of it. Then you got to assemble the whole gun. So there's, you know, that 30 minutes is kind of misleading. Can I build a complete AR in 30 minutes? Probably. That's pushing it. You know, that's pushing it. If you're really doing it and doing it right, you know, 45 minutes to an hour is probably about what it takes to really build an AR. You know, going forward, these will have to be serialized. If you have them that are not serialized, you've built these over the years and they're not serialized, if you want to take that gun to a gunsmith or a gun store, or you want to sell it, or you, for whatever reason, have to interact with somebody else with this, they can say they're not accepting it without a serial number. And they can take it and have it serialized for you at your expense, but one way or another, you're going to have to put a serial number on it. All of the 80% lowers that I have made for myself over the years, I've done a few of them, I've serialized every one of them. I've put numbers on them. And the reason I've done that is, one, you're not required to as of this point, okay? That, like I said, that all changes tomorrow. I have put a serial number on them because for a couple of reasons. If I'm somewhere and I get stopped by law enforcement and I have an unserialized gun, they're going to have questions, right? Why is this unserialized? Okay, you built it yourself. Do you have proof that you built it yourself? Where's your receipts? Blah, blah, blah. You know, they're going to have questions, okay? Two, if it gets stolen, for some reason it gets stolen, something happens and I'm no longer in possession of that gun, I want to be able to give the police a serial number that says, you know, and I usually tie it to some way to me, right? My initials are going to be in there, some numbers that are pertinent to me, you know, some numbers in my social security number, some number in my birthday, my address. There's going to be some stuff in there that's very specific to me that I can say, look, that's my gun. Look here, these are my initials. These numbers represent this. These numbers represent that. I can point to that and say, look, that's my gun. The other thing I do with all of my guns is I keep a photographic history of my serial numbers. So I have the serial numbers for every gun that I own in photograph, and if it gets stolen and recovered, I look, here it is, right? And you know, a lot of the guns that I've bought obviously have gone through Form 4473s, and they can prove that they're mine that way. So that's why I serialize them, just because. And again, you know, you can make up any number you want, whatever, bunch of letters, bunch of numbers, right? But you know, going forward, they will have to be serialized. Grandfathers in existing classifications of frame and receivers to include split frame and receivers, and allows them to be marked in accordance with existing requirements. Partially complete, disassembled, or non-functional frame or receivers, including parts kits that the ATF did not classify as frames or receivers prior to the rule, will not be grandfathered in under the final rule and will need to be reevaluated. Licensed manufacturers or importers are required to abide by the new marking requirement for all new firearms designs. So, you know, some people were saying, okay, are we going to have to serialize uppers? Are we going to have to serialize bolt carrier groups? Are we going to have to? No, they have come down and said what parts need to be serialized. And on these split receiver AR type firearms, it is still the lower receiver. So currently, the current design of an upper receiver does not have to be serialized. Now, if somebody comes along in a year or two and develops this whole new style of upper receiver and says, you know, hey, I've got this whole new technological thing, I want to have it patented, it's completely different than anything out there, then the ATF's going to want to look at that and see if they're going to classify that as part of the gun and if it's going to need to be serialized. So anything current technology is going to remain the way it is from what I'm reading and from what I'm understanding. Other related definitions here. Firearm clarifies the firearm parts kits is considered a firearm. Okay, firearms parts kits are considered a firearm. So that firearms parts kit, if it contains an 80% lower, will need to be serialized, and you will have to go through a background check to buy it. Gunsmith clarifies the meaning or term that explains that a gunsmith may be licensed as dealers or manufacturers solely to mark firearms for unlicensed persons. Includes those engaged in the business of identifying firearms for non-licensees. FFL dealers may adjust or repair and return the firearm, including personally made firearms, without taking them into inventory if returned to the person for whom the firearm was received on the same day. So if you walk into a gunsmith and say, can you fix this? And you don't have a serial number on it, and he can fix it and hand it right back to you, and you have not left the store, then that's okay. If he has to take it into inventory and log it in and put it somewhere in a safe location, it has to have a serial number. Non-FFLs may mark personally made firearms for a licensee if done under the licensee's direct supervision. So we're not an FFL. But if the gun shop down the street was taking one of these in for repair or for some reason, he could bring it here and say, hey, can you engrave a serial number on this? And he can stand right here and tell us what number to put on it. He can watch it happen, and then we can give it right back to him. We are not required to have an FFL to do that as long as the FFL holder is standing there watching that happening and immediately takes possession of the gun afterwards. FFLs may adopt existing serial numbers, including adopting the unique identification numbers previously placed on a PMF by a non-licensee under certain conditions. So if you put a serial number on there, they can log that in under that, is what that's saying. Okay, so you know, they're basically taking away the ability to go out and buy this without going through a background check and making it yourself. Okay, so you know, I'm not going to get into the legalities, the right or wrongs. You know, our rights are our rights, and we've always been allowed to make personally made firearms, and I feel we should always be allowed to make personally made firearms. Whether you should have to go through a background check or for that, I'm not going to get into the, you know, there's pros and cons to all sides of everything. So let me see, what do you got, James? So if we already have 80% lowers, we are not going to now be required to get them serialized. If we do put our own serial number on it, do you then have to have a background check on a gun yard? No. If you put a serial number on it, if you own a privately made firearm and it's unserialized, and you want to take it to a gun store, take it to an FFL, leave it in their possession for some time, either to sell it on consignment, have it fixed, any of these things, right, that's going to take that into their possession, then it's going to need a serial number. And then if it's at the gun shop for a week, right, and they have it serialized for you, they can do a background check on you to give the gun back to you. Yes. Yes, they absolutely can do a background check. A gunsmith, even if you bring a gun in and have it worked on, he can do a background check on you to give it back to you if he chooses to. He's not required to, but he can if he wants to. That's up to their discretion. Here in Ohio, we don't have to go, if we have a concealed carry permit, we don't have to go through a background check. We can show our concealed carry permit and we can buy a gun on our signature. We fill out all the same paperwork, but they just write our concealed carry permit number down on there and we walk out the door with the gun. Now, I have gone into gun stores and said, hey, here's my concealed carry permit, and they said, we don't do that here. You're going through a background check, and they run you through the background check anyway. And the reason they do that is, you know, you may have gotten in trouble and gotten arrested for something and have something pending on you, and your card is still in your possession. Okay, there's a little bit of a loophole, a gray area there, right? So they're not required to in Ohio, but some of them do just for that reason, to cover their own butts, right? They don't want to give a gun to someone who shouldn't have one because they didn't do their due diligence. So some of them do, some of them don't. In Illinois, you'll have to serialize any 80%. Yeah, right. You're right, Patrick. In some states, California, Illinois, New York, so on and so forth, some of these states, you will have to put a serial number on it regardless, if you're just to have it in your possession. If you get caught with a gun without a serial number on it, you're going to jail. You're going to get charged with something, right? Because you have an unserialized firearm, which is a no-no, right? Some states, it's not that way. You only have to do it in certain instances. But in other states, you are correct, Patrick, that they will. And make sure, like he says, check your state laws, because every state is different. In general, 80% receivers are a lot of fun. It's always cool to really dive in and do that yourself. And then at the end of it, put it all together. Everything fits. And when you pull the trigger, everything it goes bang. Yeah, even if it was built prior to this ruling, James, you know, in those states, it has to be serialized. And even if it was built prior to this and you're going to take it to an FFL or so on and so, you know, those different things that we talked about, it will need to be serialized. You will have to take it and have it serialized. You know, stamps, you know, the pounds, you know, the hammer stamps, right? Boom, 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 boom. Stamp a number into it. Take it and have them engrave a number into it. However they, you know, however you want to put a number on it, but you will have to have some sort of identifying number on that firearm to take it and have those things done to it. So yeah, even if it was built prior to this ruling being effective tomorrow, you will have to have those numbers. So, and that's, you know, like I said, I don't have anything to worry about, because I don't have to worry about it, because the ones I have built, I've engraved a serial number on all of them, and I've done it just for that reason. So, you know, and we're gonna talk just a few minutes here. We're into our time here, but we're going to talk a few minutes about standard lowers, the lower that you're going to go into the gun store and buy to build your own AR, and you're going to go through the background check. It's already serialized. It's a brand name. It's 100% finished. CNC mill go brrr, yeah. If you got a CNC mill, you're a lucky man. But there's a ton of options out there. Billet versus forged, right? This is a forged upper. This is, or lower. This is a billet lower. Okay, you can see the difference in the style, right? A lot of people think, oh, that billet's so much stronger, right? The billet's so much better. The billet's stronger. It's not the case. A forged upper or forged lower, forged upper is actually stronger than billet structurally. Okay, because what happens with, right, when they roll this block of steel, this is made out of a block of steel, and it's rolled in the mill, and it's all rolled in the same direction. All the machine, the metal's extruded all in the same direction. It's all rolled in the same direction. It's all pushed in the same direction. That means the grain structure is all going one direction, right? When you take a block of hot aluminum and lay it in a forge and they start pounding this shape, okay, and the metal moves up into here and the metal moves into here and the metal moves in, and it moves in these different directions, that grain structure is going with the movement of the metal. So your grain structure is no longer, right? If your grain structure here at the neck is all going in the same direction, you create a weak point. If the grain structure curves with the curve, it's going to be stronger, right? It's simple physics. It's going to be stronger. Grain structure is always going to be stronger in a forged product than it will in a billet because of the movement of the grain structure along the forces that are put on the metal as it's being extruded or molded. Now, billet does look cooler. And the average guy for the duty we're going to put a gun through is never going to notice the difference. This is still plenty strong enough. I've used plenty of lower receivers that were billet and upper receivers that were billet, and I've never had any issues with any of them. Plenty strong enough. So what's right for you? You got to figure that out based on what you want to spend, what you're looking for as far as style. Are you looking for the plain Jane 30, 40, 50? Well, the $30 lower receiver doesn't exist anymore, but the $45, $50 lower receiver, or are you looking for that? I've got a set that my 350 Legend that the upper and lower was $500. The set was $500. So a lot of machining done to it and made it super lightweight, and that's what I was looking for, was a super lightweight build for a hunting gun, so I don't want to carry a big heavy gun around in the woods all day long. You want to look at matching lines, right? This forged upper and lower, they're designed and made so that the lines flow, right? And it kind of looks like it's supposed to, they kind of look like they're supposed to go together, right? They're both forged. They're both designed to look like they belong together. Now you put a billet upper on there, and maybe it doesn't flow as well. Maybe it looks a little awkward because this has got all these crazy lines to it, and this doesn't. This is our upper receiver, and we've gone to pretty great pains to make sure our lines match up with a forged lower. Okay, so you can see right there, that line matches up very well along the mag well, and you can see where the lines match up very well right here on the far side. So everything kind of looks like it flows really well. The lines here, everything, there's no big areas sticking out and nowhere ledges to catch your fingers on. So we went through a lot of great pains to make sure that these looked decent with a forged lower, because some guys are going to use the forged lower, but they also look very good with a billet lower, and they still have the same flow. You can see this is a billet label from White Label Armory. We still have the good line right there, flows very nice, and we got the good lines here. They flow very nicely. Now that's not always going to happen with billet because everybody's billets are a little different. We have a billet here from Leviathan, and you can see, now our lines are off by 1/8 of an inch, a little over 100 thou on this side, and on this side they don't even come up and fully match, and this sticks out quite a bit over the side, and so it doesn't. You're going to want to, if you're looking for flow and continuity of parts, you're going to want to have both parts together and kind of see them. And that's why a lot of guys buy matched sets. You buy a matched set and you know that they're designed together and they're going to look good together, right? You buy the same matched set from the same company and you're going to get that flow that you're looking for. So, a myth. Billet is not stronger than forged, and two, make sure that when you're looking for a lower, you're also going to know what kind of upper you're using. so that, you know, if flow and style and looks is important to you, then, you know, you want to make sure that you're meshing the two together and making sure they look right, or you're buying that match set so you know that they're going to look right. To do, convince the wife that I need to get a CNC mill right, upgrade my FFL to an 07, and keep trying to get the wife on board with moving out of the state. There you go. Yeah. I would not live in New York, Illinois, California, any of these states with restrictive gun laws. We're very lucky here in Ohio. We have very minimal restrictions, you know, really hardly any. We have no magazine restrictions. We have no weapons restrictions. We don't have to modify our ARs in any way to make them compliant. So we're fortunate here in Ohio for now. We're going to knock on wood. So I think that's all I have talking about lowers today. Like I said, you know, this rule takes effect tomorrow. I'm sure you're going to see all over social media as this hits, and the excuse me, mouse getting a little dry. The lawsuits are going to happen, trying to stop this stuff, and you know, and as we talked about last week, you know, that Chevron deference rule that came out a couple weeks ago with the EPA is going to make a big impact on this stuff as it moves eventually to the Supreme Court, which is where they want it to go, because the Supreme Court said that in the Chevron deference rule, in the EPA ruling on greenhouse gas emissions from coal-fired plants, that the EPA didn't have the jurisdiction to regulate that. They didn't have the jurisdiction to make laws. Only Congress and Senate can make laws. So what they said was a regulatory body cannot make laws. The Constitution is very clear about who can and cannot make laws. Congress and Senate make laws. Enforcement branches enforce the laws. Now, these enforcement branches, the EPA, the ATF, all these different alphabet bureaucracies are now dictating law, and they're telling you what you can and can't have. So that's, you know, that's not the way the game was designed. It's not the way it's supposed to work. Congress and Senate are supposed to tell us what we can and can't have, and they're supposed to do that based on what we tell them. They work for us. I'm getting I'm getting tuned up. So yeah. Semi-auto for big game, yeah, we can use our ARs for big game. For deer here in Ohio, we are limited to 3 rounds, just like with our shotguns. James says, vote the right person in for president and get all this overturned. Yeah. Vote. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, what to vote. I'm just going to tell you vote, right? If you don't vote, you're part of the problem. We all need to vote. And we all need to vote based on what we believe in. And vote for the person that believes in what we believe in. So, okay. I got on a little soapbox there for a minute, but I'll get off of it. So, thanks for joining me. That's lower receivers and our Spypoint. As I get some pictures start to come in after I get these out here in the coming week, and I start getting some pictures, I'm really excited because I had a really nice 8-point that I know made it through last year. I got pictures of him on the last day of the season that I'm really anxious to see what he looks like this year. So I'm going to get that camera out there and see if he's still around. Hopefully the coyotes or the cars didn't get him. That is always a possibility. Yeah, Texas doesn't limit much. We are limited here to 3 rounds in our hunting guns, our rifles, and our shotguns for deer hunting. And I get why they do it, for safety purposes. You know, you don't want a guy with a 30-round mag busting 30 rounds at a deer as he's running down through the woods at 100 miles an hour. Boom, 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 just hoping he hits something. that's dangerous. You know, I totally understand why they do it. You know, I don't even shoot at running deer anymore. I'm not, you know, I'm not that good. I'm a good shot. I'm not that good of a shot. You know, I have hit moving targets before, but a deer that's running flat out, head down, ears back, I ain't even lifting my gun up. That deer's going to live to see another day because I'm just going to waste lead. I'm just not that good. So, you know, I understand why they limit us, and we have pretty flat land here. So I get it. But, you know, there have been times, 1 or 2 times, when I've wished that I had one more bullet in my gun because I've missed with the first 3, you know. It has happened, and that's why I don't take running shots anymore, because I'm just probably not going to, and I don't want to wound the animal and take a chance on it going somewhere and suffering and dying and not being able to recover it. And I know the coyotes and the raccoons and everything will eat good, but that's not, I'm just not, I don't feel good about that. Yeah, carry a spare mag, right? And learn how to change them out quick, right? If you practice it, you can change out a mag in a second or 2. Yeah, all right. So thanks for joining me. This was Lower Receivers and Spypoint Cameras, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks, and remember, you don't have to be an expert to build your own AR to upgrade it or maintain it. We're here to help you do that. We'll see you guys next week.